Let me take you back. Back to a time when Rockstar actually made standalone DLC expansions, instead of just giving GTA Online the occasional content update and then raking in enough microtransaction cash to rival the GDP of a small country. And the term always online live service was just an ominous whisper on the night wind. And during this time, Rockstar released 2 DLC expansions for their smash hit drive and shoot game, Grand Theft Auto 4, which are called The Lost and Damned and The Ballad of Gay Tony. 2 story expansions that featured 2 new protagonists, all new weapons and vehicles, and 2 thick stories that expand not only on the main game story, but also expand Liberty City's world far beyond what the base game ever could. However, as of today, one of these expansions is seen as Grand Theft Auto 4 at its absolute peak, and the other is considered one of the most forgettable and disposable GTA experiences ever crafted. And after just recently playing both of these expansions for the very first time, I want to compare the two, and see what's some peak, and see what's some cheeks. And let's start with The Lost and Damned first, as it came out first. And The Lost and Damned tells the story of Johnny Klebitz, a high-ranking member of the Lost Motorcycle Club, and an occasional ally to Nico in the base game, who was present for a few failed drug and diamond deals in the main story, before he vanished into thin air after the Libertonian diamond deal went tits up. And this expansion is about him, his struggles, and the downfall of the Lost MC from within. And first, let's take a look at the game's story, which is by far its most heavily criticized aspect. The story opens with the Lost MC all biking together to some sweet new metal music. And we get a roll call of the gang's members, our glorious protagonist and Lost MC Vice President Johnny Klebitz, Jim Fitzgerald the treasurer, Brian Jeremy the secretary, and a few other guys who aren't very important, so I'll skip them. And they're all riding out to go pick up the president of the Lost MC, Billy Gray, a man with the largest goatee I've ever seen in my life. He kind of looks like meth head biker Santa Claus. And Billy is just getting released from his court-ordered heroin rehab. And the gang picks him up, and they all drive back to their club, this shitty rundown bar slash flop house that's out in Alderney. And Billy and Johnny are at each other's throats pretty much immediately.
Where's my bike? And where the fuck is my bike, and where the fuck haven't you got it back for me?
Because while Billy was in custody, Johnny, as the acting president of the Lost, had surrendered Billy's bike to a rival gang, the edgy as all fuck sounding Angels of Death Motorcycle Club, as a sort of peace offering to prevent a gang war between the Lost and the Angels of Death shortly after Billy got arrested, so the Lost could run their criminal businesses in relative peace while Billy was rotting in the doghouse. But Billy ain't having that peace and prosperity shit at all, and he came out of the can with a murderous vengeance and a chip on his shoulder the size of Nevada, it seems. And he demands that Johnny get his bike back right away, despite doing so likely resulting in restarting the gang war.
Get my bike! What am I, your fucking dog?
So the Lost ride out, torture a mechanic at wheel point for its location, and then shoot up a squad of Angels of Death to get the bike back, breaking the uneasy truce between the two gangs simply for Billy's ego. And back at the clubhouse, Johnny and Billy almost get into a fistfight over some mild at best banter.
And if I get tested, I have a bag of 12-year-old's piss right here. I am
real nice.
Oh, fuck you, Johnny! You don't judge me!
Whoa!
Before the guy who Nico is going to kill later on says that a bunch of Angels of Death deadbeats had showed up to the club, and these guys love using the word deadbeat. Seems like it's the go-to slur for bikers in Liberty City or something.
Got a couple of fucking deadbeats outside.
Deadbeat, motherfucker. Screw you, you deadbeat prick!
These deadbeats are the ones who killed Jason in Broker.
These deadbeats killed Jason?
Wake these deadbeats up with a bang, brother!
I guess they're all absent fathers. And the Angels of Death here rightly press Billy on why he killed some of their guys and stole his bike back despite there being a truce. And Billy makes the situation even worse by capping one of the bikers right on his doorstep and then having his gang run down and kill the rest of them, which Johnny isn't pleased about at all.
Moron.
But he joins in on the slaughter regardless. And we also help Jim steal some bikes and deal with some corrupt cops on the side. But these missions aren't that important at all for the story, and the cops just try to extort Johnny and Jim, and they just say fuck these clowns, and kill them in the very next mission. And then Johnny meets Billy back at the clubhouse, where Billy is hanging with a lawyer, who LARPs as a biker thug when he's not at his day job. And the lawyer mentions a politician named Thomas Stubbs III, who he says could party with the Lost. But then Billy gives him a temporary lobotomy after tricking him into smoking mescaline-laced weed.
I put some mescaline in with the weed, Dave. Dave, are you a bisexual?
Johnny and Billy then try to have a conversation about the tension between the two of them, as Johnny wants to keep a low profile and would rather not start massive gang wars, so they can run their criminal enterprises and make some dough in relative peace, while Billy is on the damn warpath to obliterate the Angels of Death, no matter what may happen to the Lost in the process. But before they almost settle their differences and have an honest and productive conversation, Billy gets a text that some lost guys are getting attacked by angels of death. So we have to ride out and murder a small village worth of angels of death in a pretty huge shootout. But after all the angels are massacred, Billy gathers the gang around and says that one of their enforcers, his name was Jason by the way, was killed out in Broker, gunned down by a Polak or a Serb or a Russian or something.
And hired a fucking Polak to do it.
I think he was a Serb, Brian.
Fucking Slav scumbag all the fucking
Shut the fuck up.
Probably on the orders of his Russian girlfriend's mobster dad. And they're not 100% sure who capped Jason, but they all swear vengeance on that unknown Slav regardless. And back at the club, Ray Bogino jump scare. We spot Ray trying to recruit Billy into crashing the upcoming diamond deal with Gay Tony. But Billy has something else on his mind right now, and he blows off Ray. And he says that he found out who killed Jason. It turns out that the Angels of Death are our Serb in question, and Billy then demands Johnny take a grenade launcher and attack the Angels' base with them. And this is obviously a bull-faced lie, because we the player, as Nico, killed Jason ourselves in the base game. And Billy had it pretty much right from the start. An Eastern European hitman killed Jason on the orders of his Russian girlfriend's mobster father. But now Billy has changed his story completely and tells Johnny, oh yeah, the Angels of Death did it. Go kill them. And Johnny, who's unable to step to his daddy Billy, has to go along with it despite knowing it's all a load of horse shit. And we siege the Angels clubhouse and massacre a whole chapter of them in a pretty fun firefight. And would you look at that? These Serbian Angels of Death who killed Jason were sitting on a huge stash of heroin that the Lost can now claim eminent domain over. And Johnny tries to explain to Billy that stealing $2 million worth in smack, on top of being in a brutal gang war with the Angels of Death, will be terrible for the Lost, as other Liberty City gangs will be looking to steal the H from them, making them hotter than the girl reading this. But Billy just angrily yells at Johnny to shut up and obey, while his little imp Brian snickers to himself.
Brian, grab the shit.
And we then try to sell some of the heroin with Eliza Beta, like we did in the base game, linking with Nico and waltzing right into an LCPD sting, and then having to escape from the police, but from Johnny's perspective this time. And after that, Billy commands Johnny to go work for that politician his lawyer biker friend knows, that guy Thomas Stubbs III, who is currently getting a back massage, and who then gets up and tells Johnny about the job he needs done, all while his shaboing boing is just flopping around.
Dude, put that thing away. They're like children here.
But Xbox 360 era cock and balls aside, Thomas Stubbs has us blow up his uncle and steal a prison bus and free what appears to be a Hannibal Lecter-ass cannibal man for him, for God knows what reason. And all this side questing will grant Johnny one favor from him later on. And around this time, Johnny also gets a call from his ex-girlfriend Ashley, who we have to save from a filthy and dilapidated crack den full of murderous bums. And Ashley here is hopelessly addicted to any and all rock-like drugs, whether they be cracked or crystalline. And her poor choices and brutal addiction get Johnny into several suboptimal situations later on. But for now, Johnny and Jim, remember him? Meet with Billy and his little goblin servant Brian, and they all argue about the H they stole off the Angels of Death, and how it's putting too much heat on the Lost, on account of Johnny almost getting his melon shot off by undercover cops, who sniffed out their heroin deal from a mile away. And Johnny is also getting calls from FIB agents, who are asking him to come talk with them, and maybe snitch on his brothers a little bit. So he's extra anxious to get rid of the stuff. So to take the heat off of them, the Lost come up with a bit of a far-fetched plan. Since the heroin was originally stolen off some Chinese triads, Billy thinks, what if we give the heroin back to the triads, charge them a finder's fee, and then maybe things will all be good? But as we learn in the Ballad of Gay Tony, Billy had already met with the triads ahead of time, and he had schemed to have them kill Johnny and Jim and let them take their heroin back, which would effectively kill two birds with one stone for Billy, removing the heat off his gang and removing his two most bothersome underlings from the picture. And we can learn what Billy really thinks of Johnny from this conversation. So the four of them ride out to the deal to meet with the triads, and Johnny and Jim go in, while Billy and Brian hang back outside to, quote, watch their backs, which is an immediate red flag. And of course, the triads aren't really jazzed about the idea of rebuying stolen heroin that they smuggled into the country in the first place. So they just do what any self-respecting criminal organization would do. Take their heroin back by force and try to kill these biker thugs who stole from them. And Johnny and Jim have to shoot their way out of yet another deal, unknowingly foiling Billy's trap by being too good at shooting Chinese gangsters in the face. But while that's happening, the LCPD arrive on the scene to stop this massive shootout, and we now see an inexplicably bloodied and injured Billy. Like seriously, did he get attacked by a mountain lion off screen or something? Well, I guess he crashed his motorcycle? But there's no cutscene of him wiping out or crashing. He's just suddenly all beat up and standing in the middle of the road. And Billy raves and hollers that Johnny had sold him out and promises to kill him as he gets detained. But he knows that Johnny didn't pull an insane Mongolian reversal and set Billy up with the LCPD instead. He's just butthurt that his plan completely backfired. But Billy's hollering does its job, and Billy's lapdog Brian is now fully convinced that Johnny had sold him out. And soon, Johnny and Jim confront Brian, where they have a Twitter tier intellectual argument before opening fire on each other.
Yeah, you think Billy'd stick his neck out for you? You're dumber than I thought.
Starting a civil war within the Lost MC itself. Billy and Brian's loyalists versus Johnny, Jim, and a few other stragglers. And Johnny has to gun down several of his former brothers and even run them down on his motorcycle to kill them. And we then meet with Ray Bacino again, who had learned about the Lost Civil War from Ashley, who he's seeing on the side.
Where'd you hear that from?
From Ashley.
You friends with Ashley?
Everybody's friends with Ashley, tough guy.
You might want to get screened for that, bud. Oh, and this explains why there was some random crackhead lady yelling in one of Ray's cutscenes in the base game.
Can I get a goddamn copy here?
Yeah, you look like you could really use some goddamn caffeine.
And Ray also tells Johnny and his guys where Brian is. He's hiding out in this house that's so shitty it looks like it's from a literal horror game. And we bust in and execute Brian for being such an asshole. And after that's done, we then help Elizabeth some more with a few more side quests, which sees us working alongside two black biker dudes, Malcolm, or Malk, and Deshaun, who Johnny has a funny little rivalry with, as Johnny and the Lost prefer loud-ass American-made muscle chopper bikes, while Malk and Deshaun like the fast, buzzing, Asian-made speed bikes, like those real-life Yamaha motorcycles. And we ambush some Angels of Death and do a pretty fun on-rail shooting segment while escaping from police after a deal had gone comically bad.
Oh, you fucked up now, bitch! Holy shit! Yo, you see what you did? This shit's fucked up, damn you, motherfucker!
And Johnny has to use an infinite ammo street sweeper auto shotgun to blast these cops while riding on the back of Malk's motorcycle. And it's pretty great shit. And it's a bit tougher of a shooting gallery than I expected. It's one of the harder ones in the entire game. And finally, we pick up a drug mule from the airport for Elizabeth, after we gently tell some police to let her go. But once that's all done, we then get a call from Ashley, who Ray is using to rope Johnny into intercepting Gay Tony's diamond deal, which of course works. And Johnny and his guys crash the deal for Ray, steal the stones, and stash them in the trash for Nico to come pick up later. And then Ashley then calls us again, her drug addiction getting her into even more trouble, as she's now indebted to the Russian mafia, and specifically, that soulless husk in a suit, Dmitry Raskolov. Just fantastic. And these Ivans threaten to kill Ashley over her drug debt, unless Johnny kidnaps Roman Bellic for him, which we do with Malk's help. And while we drive him over to the abandoned warehouse, Roman will try to jump out of the car occasionally, and he also completely shits his pants too, all while screaming through his gag for the entire ride. Poor Roman.
Damn it, dude done pissed himself. That shit ain't right. From the smell, it ain't just piss.
And after that, we help Ray with the diamond deal, just like in the base game, where we link up with Nico, and the diamond deal gets crashed by Luis, and Johnny swipes the Jewish Mafia's money briefcase before bugging out. But now we get to see Johnny's POV of him escaping the Libertonian, where we kill some goons, see the death that Nico has left in his wake, and even kill Ray Bacino's men on the way out, to make sure that we leave with the cash and no witnesses. Now, as we see in the base game, Ray knows that Johnny ran off with the cash because Nico was there to witness it and reported it back to Ray. But Johnny tries to act dumb, and he says that he doesn't know what Ray is talking about, but he fails the speech check, and Ray clearly suspects him. And soon enough, we get a text from Jim telling us to meet at Ray's, but it's a trap. Ray had kidnapped Jim and is now melting his face off with a blowtorch, and he demands that Johnny give him back his diamonds and his cash. But then Jim uses a hidden box cutter to cut himself free of his torture chair, and he takes his blowtorch torturer hostage. And Johnny and Jim escape after Jim pulls a Gus Fring on the nameless goon that works for Ray, as Ray promises retribution in the least threatening way possible.
I'll see you later!
Johnny and Jim then split up, and Ray then sends some goons and cars to try and kill Johnny, who dispatches them with very little trouble. However, Jim isn't so lucky, as Ray sent Nico, the Hove Beach Grim Reaper himself, to take him out. So he's fucking toast, and Jim is gunned down off screen during the No Way on the Subway mission in the base game, which, hilariously, Rockstar fucked up on, as Jim isn't even in the base game's mission, and he's replaced with a fat and bald white dude, which confused me when I originally played this expansion, because Jim's death didn't make sense to me, until I realized his model was changed between the base game and the DLC. But when all that's done, Johnny meets Stubbs, his last and final hope, back at the now empty Lost MC hideout, who tells him to not worry about Ray. He already played the base game and read the script early, and he knows that Nico kills him on Pegorino's orders soon after this. And he also reveals that Billy Gray had flipped on Johnny while in prison, and he now plans to snitch on and pin drug charges on him. So Johnny will get sent to prison, while Billy gets a cushy life of freedom and witness protection. And Stubbs says our best bet would be to siege the prison and kill Billy ourselves before he makes a deal with the Fuzz. Stubbs telling Johnny all of this as a repayment for our work helping him blow up his uncle and liberating a cannibal from prison, which between him and UL Paper from the base game, makes this game's story a bit ironic to me, as these corrupt federal agents and politicians are some of the most honorable and true to their word characters in the game. So we load up with all the DLC weapons and blast through the jail with whatever Lost MC bikers are left, and we find and cap Billy right in that shitty forehead tattoo of his.
What? You waiting for a speech or something?
Come on!
And we escape from the cops back to the clubhouse, where Johnny and a few of his friends, including his wheelchair-bound biker friend Angus, who was barely in the story at all until now, reflect on the downfall of the Lost before they burn the whole place down, symbolizing the end of the Lost MC as we know it in Liberty City. And now Johnny has to live in Brian's dilapidated Asmongold house all by himself. And sometime after this story, as we all know, Johnny moves to Blaine County in San Andreas State, where he then eventually gets thrown to the dirt and stomped to death by Trevor, who had just got done fucking Ashley in the butt and started crashing out over seeing his old buddy Michael on the TV, which he saw while fucking Ashley in the butt. And this may be one of the most unceremonious and pathetic endings to a protagonist I've ever seen in my entire life. Oh, man. Someone must have really hated Johnny over at Rockstar or something. But with that, that's that. And the Lost and Damned story is now complete. And although I do like the setup and scenario for this DLC story, which shows us the downfall of the Lost MC from within, fueled by a feud between the president and the vice president of the gang, who both have very different visions for how their MC should operate, this DLC's main story conflict is just way too rushed to be as impactful as they want it to be. I mean, the Lost get their president back, start a biker war over a missing bike, steal $2 million in heroin during said war, have our president get locked up in a drug deal gone bad, start a biker civil war within the Lost itself, get involved with the base game diamond deals, break into a prison by force, and kill the president after we learn that he's gonna rat on us to the feds. All crammed into a story that's like 1/4 the length of the base game. And there's simply too much happening with not enough time to fully develop and explore these characters, making the story feel like a bit of a blur, and all of the characters are extremely forgettable. Hell, I wasn't even sure who Angus, that guy in the wheelchair, was even supposed to be. So I was pretty damn confused when he showed up at the end and started spitting the moral lesson that we learned from the fall of the Lost. Hell, even Rockstar themselves forgot who Jim Fitzgerald was, as he's white in the base game, but Hispanic in the DLC. And Rockstar never bothered to give the game an update to swap the models or anything. Also, instead of being focused on the central conflict between Billy and Johnny, the game casts too wide of a net, and Johnny runs around helping his fellow biker bros, Stubbs, Elizabeta, and so on, and the main conflict of the DLC ends up falling into the background of its own story. And I feel like we didn't really dig deep enough into Billy's motivations to make the plot truly compelling. He's just hell-bent on causing as much violence and chaos in the shortest amount of time possible, and is extremely antagonistic towards Johnny from the jump, despite Johnny being the one to keep the gang together and running the whole operation smoothly for him while he was locked up. And the game just explains away Billy's crazy decisions as him just being a strung-out heroin junkie, and just kind of moves on from there. And after the deal with the Triads goes bad, he blames Johnny for everything and swears vengeance. But then we don't see him again for hours, until the very last mission, where Stubbs just says, let me be clear. Billy's a snake. Go shoot his ass or you're gonna get locked up. And we just do. And it's all very underwhelming. And also, Johnny himself just isn't very likable to me, unfortunately. And he seems sort of like a rough draft for a later and greater Rockstar protagonist, my guy Arthur Morgan, as both this DLC and Red Dead Redemption 2 tell the story of the fall of a criminal gang from within, when the leader, whether it be Dutch or Billy, and his top enforcer, whether it be Johnny or Arthur, fall out with each other over how their gang should operate, and the leader becomes more violent and irrational over time. Except when Arthur has to make his choices, he lets his own personal sense of honor guide him, whereas Johnny is more or less forced into all of his situations, with very little actual personal agency. He's very opposed to Billy's insane ideas and desire for war with the Angels of Death, yet he still goes along with it all, only grumbling and complaining about it after the fact, instead of opposing Billy in any meaningful way, making him feel very passive as a protagonist, and his relationship with Ashley is pretty frustrating to watch unfold. And I know that the game is trying to show us Johnny's redeeming qualities in these situations, as despite his ex-girlfriend being a degenerate drug addict bum who fucks slime balls like Ray for drugs, and constantly gets herself into debt and trouble, Johnny still comes to her rescue no matter what, because he's truly loyal and actually cares about his lost MC friends. But in practice, this just ends up making Johnny look like a total sucker, and makes him seem like he has even less agency, as he never actually helps Ashley in any truly meaningful way. Her addiction gets her into a bad situation, Johnny is then forced to bail her out or else she'll be killed, or worse, and he'll then half-heartedly tell her to quit getting her mind and body fried off crystal meth, where she then completely ignores him, and then even tries to emotionally manipulate him at times.
Take that bike, we'll ride off into the sunset, you and me.
You, me, and that little habit of yours.
You're my habit, Johnny.
And you're ridiculous.
And Johnny just leaves her be, until she gets herself into another bad situation, and we gotta bail her out again. But despite this DLC's story being too rushed and Johnny not being that great of a protagonist, is The Lost and Damned at least fun to play as an expansion? Well, for the most part, yes, it is. And first off, The Lost and Damned adds several new and pretty fun weapons to play around with. We get a new sawed-off shotgun to vaporize enemies at close range, which we can also use while riding our motorcycle, for some shooting that perfectly fits the biker theming that this expansion is going for. And we finally get another alternative explosive weapon in the form of the grenade launcher, for even more ways to blow shit up. But the RPG will always be the most fun explosive weapon for me. And we also get pipe bombs, which aren't all that different from regular grenades, so they were the least interesting new weapon for me. And we also get the assault shotgun, aka the street sweeper, an automatic shotgun that's a lot of fun to absolutely melt enemies and cars with at a short range. A pool cue melee weapon that I literally never used, and my favorite weapon in the entire expansion, the automatic 9mm pistol. Popping heads with this thing was so fun to do, and with the PC mouse aim, it felt way better to use than any other SMG. It's more accurate and does more damage at range, with some excellent sound effects to boot. Man, I love this gun. And since you're supposed to play these DLCs after you complete the main game's story, Lost and Damned wastes no time in throwing you into some huge shootouts and action-packed missions with plenty of ops to drill, making each mission here pound for pound more fun and way more violent than most of the entire base game. And the most memorable missions for me were the ones where you have to pick up Elisa Beta's drug mule from the airport, the final prison siege and shootout, breaking out the cannibal, and of course, the on-rails street sweeper shooting gallery were all some pretty fun and memorable missions for me. And there's no slow, incremental ramp up to harder and more violent missions. It's pretty much all gas from mission 1, which helps to make the weaker story much more enjoyable to get through. And as for new side content, we get 3 new mini-games, high-low cards, arm wrestling, and air hockey for some fun side distractions. But the real meat of the side content comes from races, which I really didn't participate in, and the gang wars, which are bite-sized side missions where you link up with your biker bros, and you gotta be on a bike to start the quest. Them's the rules, you see. If you ain't on a bike, your brothers will think it's cringe, and they won't help you. Where you then ride out to obliterate some rival gangs, whether it be Russians, Jamaican Yardies, Italians, Angels of Death, or even Albanians, where you'll either find and kill a squad of them, chase down a vehicle convoy and destroy it, or destroy a certain vehicle car before it gets away, which can all be infinitely repeated. They're sort of like those Radiant quests from Skyrim with randomized targets, locations, and rewards. And there's also a solid sense of progression to these quests too, as if your Lost MC allies survive the fight, their toughness bar goes up, making them stronger and harder to kill in later gang wars. And they'll need the extra strength, as the gang wars get harder and harder the more you play them. And if one of your biker allies dies in battle, their portrait will be added to a wall in the Lost HQ, a small but somber shrine where we can mourn all our fallen beers. It's a convenient way to provide you with some endless action and gunfights, until you get bored of it and move on. And finally, The Lost and Damned adds some nice quality of life features to the game. For example, bike handling has been improved a fair bit, and Johnny is now much harder to launch off of his bike than Nico was when you inevitably crash into something. He knows some old biker tricks from the 60s to keep his ass fused to the seat, and conveniently, when riding with the Lost as a unit, a massive Lost MC emblem will appear on the ground in the middle of the pack, which will refill your health and armor if you drive on it in proper formation, which is great for streamlining health regeneration and restoring you before missions, as you won't have to waste as much time going to Cluckenbell or hunting for health glizzy stands to get your health back up before these ultra-violent missions. And when you fail a mission or die, the DLC's finally added some solid in-mission checkpoints, so you don't need to start the mission from the very beginning when you go to accept that redo text on Johnny's phone, which was a godsend and a huge time saver for those more difficult and action-saturated missions. And while we're on the topic of the phone, you'll notice that it has a new look with a custom Lost MC background, and all the UI and menu music got some changes. The UI now has a gritty biker theming to it, and there's a new font for all on-screen text that has a faded and scratchy look to it. And it all looks and sounds pretty sweet. And the only downside to this DLC tech-wise is that I ran into infinite loading screens way more often in both DLCs than I ever did in the base game, and I have zero clue as to why that is. But luckily, the universal fix for any bugs that I ran into in GTA 4, which is just simply capping the FPS to 60, seemed to work, and I was able to bypass these infinite loading screens. So keep the frame rate capped to 60 no matter what, or else you have to deal with the fucked up motorcycle driving too, where you aggressively fishtail out trying to make any turn that's not a light tap. And along with the infinite loading screens, you'll want to cap that shit. Trust me. But that's pretty much all there is to The Lost and Damned, which despite a rushed story with some forgettable and just straight up unlikable characters, is still a fairly enjoyable DLC with fun new weapons and some really solid missions to do, all wrapped in a dark and bitter biker gang theme. But as you'll soon see, this DLC gets heavily overshadowed by its flashier and more glamorous brother. So let's take a look at the Ballad of Gay Tony. And if The Lost and Damned represented GTA 4's dark story and atmosphere, then the Ballad of Gay Tony embodies the game's incredible humor and its more bombastic missions, as Gay Tony is GTA 4 jacked all the way up to 11, and it's the natural conclusion to GTA 4's increasingly violent missions throughout the base game. And this expansion has some of the most fun and memorable GTA missions I've ever played, and this nightclub owner and his #1 bouncer get into some absolute hijinks. And to start, let's again first take a look at the game's story. The Ballad of Gay Tony opens during the Bank of Liberty heist that Nico and the McCrearys pull off, as our latest and greatest glorious protagonist is laying on the floor, who's trying not to get executed by Nico and the Leprechaun gang. And it's this Dominican man named Luis Fernando Lopez.
Hey, what's your name, son?
It's Luis, man.
A common street thug and dope slinger from North Algonquin who, by chance, was hired as a bodyguard for prominent Liberty City nightclub owner, a guy named Anthony Prince, also known as Gay Tony. And he soon became his right-hand man and confidant, and he's here withdrawing some money for Tony, and he got a bit more trouble than he bargained for. And Luis then heads to Tony's apartment during a fun montage, with some funky music playing to instantly set a grand tone for this expansion. And we meet Tony at his place, who is never not rocking his purple-tinted sunglasses. And Tony is the owner of 2 nightclubs, Masonette 9 and his gay club Hercules. But despite 2 clubs to his name and a sweet Algonquin apartment, Tony's life ain't all champagne and hairy man-ass, and he's in massive amounts of debt to gangsters, specifically the Ancelotti crime family, which we can see when 2 Ancelotti wise guys let themselves into Tony's apartment, this guy Rocco and his uncle Vince, and they take some of Tony's cash as payment and belittle the shit out of him. And man, this DLC is crass as fuck. The dialogue here is a complete demonetization minefield.
Gentlemen, watch your language. We're in the great melting pot. We're not or gwe or we're proud Americans.
And after getting extorted, the duo drive to Tony's clubs to get the player familiar with their new places of employment. And we also meet some of Luis's old drug dealer friends that he used to work on the corners with. These 2 schmucks named Armando and Enrique, who are being blocked from entering the club by another bouncer named Desi for having garbage fits that make them look like drug dealers, which they are. And we drive them home after Tony tells Luis that his fit is complete shit as well.
Tony, what do you think?
Desi wouldn't let me get dressed like that, huh?
See what I mean?
Come to think of it, Lou, what the fuck are you wearing, huh?
What?
And after we drop them off, we meet Tony again, who is talking on the phone to another person he owes money to, some guy we only know as Maury. And we also meet Arab moneymaker Yusuf Amir in the club, the son of an extremely wealthy Emirati real estate developer, and we'll be seeing plenty of him later on. But for now, Tony and Luis drive out to try and make a deal with the Triads, as Rocco had told the Chinese that Tony and Luis could get them an illicit liquor license, which in reality, they can't, and they can barely keep their own licenses as is. So the Triads try to stick up and kill the duo for telling them, no, sorry, we can't help you. And Luis kills several dozen goons just to escape. Just a normal day at the office for Luis. And once that's done, we also meet with Luis's mother, whom he supports financially, but she hates the career path that he's chosen. She isn't a fan of Luis being a nightclub enforcer and career criminal, and she wants him to quit working for Tony and to go back to college, which Luis just flat out refuses to do. Studying isn't really within his skill set, and this embarrassment and guilt towards Luis's lifestyle has led her to instead borrow money from sketchy loan sharks instead of her own son, and we meet a loan shark who's having tea with her, who then ropes Luis into taking a dive at an underground boxing ring to help pay off her debts, or else the loan shark will burn her fucking house down. So we take the fall and get Mrs. Lopez's debt cleared. But when Luis calls her again to tell her that he purposely lost so she wouldn't get her apartment torched, she chews him out for being a loser.
You claim to be some big shot, and you can't even win a fight for your mama?
I lost a fight for you, Mommy.
I didn't ask you to lose no fight. I did not ask for losers in my family.
You know what?
What the hell? Man, poor Luis can't win with his mom. But it's a very realistic scenario. And we also help Enrique and Armando do some drug deals for old time's sake, both of which fail spectacularly, thanks to the universal rule of Grand Theft Auto. No protagonist-involved deal shall go according to plan, and one gets crashed by police, and we gotta turn the whole block into a damn war zone just to get away. They sent in a whole-ass noose attack chopper to break up a minor drug deal between 4 people, and in the other, a whole gang tries to break up a heroin deal the 3 musketeers here are sneakily doing. But we wipe them all out in a massive shootout yet again. We then go with Tony to meet that prick Rocco, who is torturing a union official by strapping him to the front of a golf cart and beating him with golf balls at the driving range. And he then gets Luis to take over and drive balls at the guy to get him to talk, which is a hilarious and fun way to introduce the new golfing minigame that comes with his DLC. And Luis is a surprisingly excellent golfer. I don't know if you know this, but it's pretty damn hard to be this accurate and hit 3 different spots in such few tries. But our fun gets interrupted when some other mobster types pull up and open fire on us, forcing us to make a leisurely escape on a golf cart with Tony. And we then start working for Yusuf Amir, who we meet at his sweet penthouse that's full of arcade machines, motorcycles, memorabilia, Golden City models, and all kinds of other expensive, goofy crap. And Yusuf is probably my favorite character in the whole expansion not named Luis, and he's by far the funniest. He constantly says the N-word in a way that you just have to cringe at because of how authentically misused it is.
Hey man, hey nigga, what's up, what's up? Nigga!
I think you want to moderate your use of the word, bro. It's not fucking cool, alright?
Which is constantly pissing off and cringing Luis out.
Ooh, Chinese person! Bye-bye, nigga!
You fucking ridiculous, man.
And the dude is almost always blasting A-Rap Money by Busta Rhymes, which may be one of the funniest songs of all time with that auto-tuned Arabic gibberish that's on the hook.
I love this song. You know this song? Oh, yeah. A-Rap Money!
And Yusuf will be singing along to it in his underwear while waving around his golden guns trying to impress a hooker who clearly hates him. I mean, how can you not love the guy? And Yusuf talks a big game about his wealth and status as a real estate mogul, and he wants to build the biggest tower in all of Liberty City, and he may even want to franchise Tony's clubs in the future to make them all rich. But when we meet his father, Abdul Amir, we learn that Yusuf is actually a spoiled fail son, living on his dad's massive fortune, and his old man sees him as a disgrace and an embarrassment to his legacy, thanks to his fondness for spending all his time on drugs and banging loose women.
I knew how disgraceful you were, but I didn't realize quite how shameful you were.
No, Papa, don't judge a book by its cover, Father. That's what you taught me.
When a book is called Guns, Drugs, Hookers, and No Pants, I think I don't need to read it.
And it's really funny watching Yusuf completely change up his act when his father's around. And Yusuf here also sends us on some of the craziest and most memorable missions in all of Grand Theft Auto 4, not just this DLC, as he hires Luis to steal things for him that he can't just outright buy with his infinite money. He first has us sneak onto a yacht and steal a custom-made Buzzard helicopter that's loaded up with machine guns and missile launchers, which Yusuf then later plates in solid gold because, of course, which we then use to destroy the whole yacht with its weapons and then run down some escaping boats. But unfortunately, this is probably the single hardest mission in the entire game, thanks to the dogshit keyboard and mouse helicopter controls, where we have to bank and angle this unwieldy as shit helicopter to shoot tiny fleeing dinghy boats, which I could only hit with the missiles a single time, and there's no lock-on or aim assist, so it's damn near impossible to land anything. And the first-person aim mode on PC for the Buzzard is almost completely unusable, and I had to dip the helicopter down and back over and over and over again to use its machine guns to lightly tap these boats to death, which took way too goddamn long. Yusuf then has us go on ahead to meet his associate named Ahmed and another one of his friends to discuss some business, and we take his golden banana car to the not Empire State Building, which is called the Rotterdam Tower in this game. But the meeting is a trap, and Ahmed and his brother are trying to get Yusuf on a wire so Noose can bust him, where Ahmed can then move in and take over Yusuf's businesses. So Luis then throws Ahmed's friend off the side of the building. Fuck you! What? He throws him off? What? Oh, bye. If I see another tourist today, I'll shoot. And we then chase Ahmed up the spire while fighting off new shooters with an AA-12 with explosive shells loaded into it. And the action and visuals in this mission are just completely nuts, and I love it. And Ahmed also gets chucked off the building once we corner him at the very top of the central spire. Damn it, not again. Whoa! And we use the new parachute item to jump off and get safely back down to ground level. And after we meet Yusuf's dad, he has to steal what he calls a quote-unquote tank, which isn't a tank, but rather an APC. It's got wheels, not treads, you see. And we gotta snipe it free from a helicopter that's towing it, and then hop in and drive it to Yusuf's construction site. And this thing is just so goddamn fun to drive around. It pushes other cars on the road around like they're toys, and it has a turret on the top that we can use to blast and blow up any vehicles in our path, each bullet putting an extremely huge dent in the car you're firing at. It's fantastic, and it's exactly what the base game was missing. That being a big, armored, destroy fucking everything military vehicle. And then finally, Yusuf has us steal a subway car off the tracks so he can convert it into a submarine for a Liberty City themed resort back in the Middle East. And he won't just buy an old decommissioned car for cheap. Fuck no. He needs an authentic, in-use one, which has Luis jump onto the back of a subway train and slowly reach the front like a modern Western train robbery, and then blowing up a damn fleet of helicopters and LCPD cops using our explosive shotgun in a crazy on-rail shooting gallery until Yusuf can swoop in and steal the train car with a cargo helicopter, and this whole mission is just absolute fucking insanity, and it's a lot of fun. But once all that's done and Yusuf has been taken care of, we help out our boss Tony some more, and we meet him back at his apartment, where his vain asshole boyfriend Evan is sauntering around the room. All the while, Tony is passed out on the floor after taking too many pills, and he's stressed out of his goddamn mind and melodramatically suicidal over his debt to Rocco, who is apparently planning to burn down Tony's clubs for insurance cash, unless Tony deals with some LTA union members for him, which apparently can only be done by blowing them up with sticky bombs to frame their deaths as a result of terrorism. So Luis, realizing that Tony would fail spectacularly at pulling off terroristic bombings in his strung-out state, knocks out Tony and takes the bombs for himself and in broad daylight blows up a construction crane in downtown Algonquin, a subway train. There we go. What the fuck? Why does it look like Silent Hill in there? What the hell? And then breaks into an airport tarmac and barbecues a private jet in one of the more insane missions in the entire game. This nightclub shit is serious as fuck. Luis had to become a literal terrorist to pay off mob debts just to keep his club open. Just another day at the Mason at 9 office. And we then help Tony intimidate a Perez Hilton-esque gossip blogger called the Celebinator after he gave Mason at 9 a shitty review and claimed that Tony and Luis were gay lovers. They're not gay lovers. They're just business partners who have a unique father-son relationship that's so nuanced you can never understand it, okay? And we put the fear of God in this man by luring him into taking a helicopter ride with us and then throwing him out of the helicopter and having Luis skydive and catch the Celebinator in midair before deploying his parachute to glide him down to safety to get him to shit his pants and never speak of Tony and Luis ever again. We also see Luis's legendary riz with the ladies in action as he seduces and bangs a random club goer in like 5 minutes after clocking in. And after this bathroom sink sex, Tony introduces Luis to Ray Bulgarin, Nico's old Russian smuggler boss from the base game, remember?
Hello, Nico.
Who was patronizing the Mason at 9 this fine evening. And Ray takes a liking to Luis's smartassery pretty much right away, so we'll probably see him more later on. And then on Tony and Rocco's orders, we then rizz up and get another club owner's girlfriend to polish Luis's knob to get at the owner himself, who then walks in on this disgusting display of infidelity. But no worries, Luis will clean this situation right up and make sure there's no hard feelings going forward. And we also start working for, but more like fucking around, with Maury Kibbutz, Brucey Kibbutz's older brother, who Tony somehow owes money to. Maury is a more intense, meaner, shorter, muscular, and way more orange version of his brother Brucey, who he shits on and bullies relentlessly like only an asshole older brother can. And their relationship in this story makes me feel for Brucey way more than I ever did in the base game. And this DLC honestly does some pretty great character work and development for him. The way he goes from an insane Reuter loudmouth,
"Hey, I'm shitting with you. Brucey likes me,"
to a meek little boy when his brother is around, makes me almost feel kind of bad for this future shark cum peddler.
You're fat. Screw you, Maury, man.
And we as the player completely understand where he gets his insecurities from. And he also tries to kiss Luis in a moment of weakness at the club, but Luis shuts him down with a cold incel glare. And Maury has us kill some of his ops for him to settle Tony's debts. But then he decides that killing is boring, and racing would be way more fun. And he makes Luis do a racing triathlon, where we jump out of a helicopter with parachutes, land, and then hop in some boats to race on the water, and then running the boat aground to then race with cars, which I handily win after expertly landing in the boat from my parachute. And then finally, Maury has Luis and Brucey follow him in some muscle cars, where he then calls the cops on himself to make this drive a bit more interesting, until we escape from them by jumping across barges. Oh, and watch out for loose boxes that'll flip your car. Okay. But doing this will clear all of Tony's debts to Maury. But Maury pisses off Brucey just a little too much, and Brucey eventually snaps and socks Maury in the face, who then just completely folds and breaks down. And he starts loudly moping and whining about just how much that punch hurt, shattering his tough guy persona completely. But then Brucey takes him home and feels good about himself for finally standing up to his dickhead older brother. And they'll be just fine. And we then meet Tony back at his apartment, where Rocco, his boyfriend Evan, and Gracie Ancelotti are all doing lines and yucking it up, while Tony is again passed out on the floor from taking too many drugs and drinking too much booze. And Luis then gets him up, and they head out to go buy $2 million worth of diamonds at a great price. This diamond deal being Tony's last-ditch hope to pay off all his debts. But as we know, Ray Bacino got tipped off to the diamond deal, and Johnny and the Lost crashed the exchange, and we gotta shoot and bomb the Lost with sticky bombs just to escape with our lives. Johnny swiping the diamonds after running down and killing Tony's boyfriend Evan in the process, leaving Tony completely screwed for the time being. Although he's not super sad about his boyfriend being brutally shot to death. He's only just a little bit sad. But all hope is not lost, as we meet at Hercules, where Tony says that he heard the stolen diamonds are going to be traded in a deal going down at the Libertonian Museum. And maybe we could give a lowball offer of our own. But again, Tony is too faded to attend. So Luis arrives to the museum in style, in Yusuf's golden buzzard, and I pop out on Nico and those mobsters, and steal the diamonds back, and bug out on our golden chopper, where we then have to do a clunky as all hell dogfight with some pursuing police choppers, before we get to land, and hand the diamonds back off to Tony. But this dub is short-lived, as the base game happens, and Gracie Ancelotti is kidnapped by Nico and the McReary's to extort them, which makes Tony have a full-on crash out. He's still in debt, is constantly strung out on drugs to cope with the stress, and all his business deals keep failing spectacularly. And he even puts a gun to his head while Luis pleads with him to get a grip. But luckily, the gun jams, and Luis disarms him. And Luis then forces Tony to lock in, and they follow Packy's extremely red car from a chopper to try and find Gracie's location. Packy driving the entire breadth of the map from his house in Broker to the Alderney safe house that they're keeping Gracie in. But before we can actually get Gracie back, we gotta do some final jobs for Ray Bulgarian behind Tony's back. And we meet Ray at his house, where we learn that he loves guitars and music and wants to buy a hockey team. And he's often shredding it with his asshole henchman friend Timur. And he also lives with a sister that he completely hates, constantly shouting at each other through the ceiling. And Ray even lights her ass up because she was getting extra annoying one time.
Shut up, you cunt! Shut up, you fucking cunt! Ignore her, Luis. The diamonds.
And I don't know if she's okay or not. Doesn't really sound like she is. So we help Ray by killing some corrupt noose goons in a massive underground parking lot shootout and assassinate a rival quote-unquote businessman by parachuting out of a helicopter and landing on his skyscraper, and then breaking in and blasting through the place in a sick mission ripped right out of a Mission Impossible movie. But back at Ray's, it seems that he was tipped off that Tony had gotten his hands on some diamonds, and he sends Luis on a vague, nondescript job after lighting up his sister through the ceiling. But when we arrive, we find a package with the severed head of the cook inside, the guy who Tony was going to buy the diamonds from. The cook had stolen the diamonds from Ray, which was why Tony was able to get such a good price on them in the first place. But now Ray is getting his rocks back one way or another, and Luis is then ambushed by Ray's snipers, who we gotta take down and shoot across the rooftops to escape from. But after Luis escapes from Ray's ambush, Tony takes us down to the pier, as the Ancelottis have forced him to exchange the diamonds for Gracie's release. But as we know, Ray Bulgarian crashes the deal, and eventually the diamonds are lost after a goon throws them on a passing gravel truck. But Tony and Luis recover Gracie and boat away to safety. And while we were getting away, some guy jumped onto the back of the boat and was holding on for dear life. And this dude must be strong as fuck, like Viltrumite level strong, to be able to hold on without his arms getting ripped off by the drag. Jesus. But after we recover Gracie, Rocco tells Luis to meet him in the Middle Park toilets, and there, he and Vince say that Ray had approached Don Ancelotti and wants him to hand over anyone related to the diamond deal, and that Don himself is pretty pissed about his daughter getting kidnapped and the shit with the triads from way earlier in the game going bad, and he wants to make an example of someone. And these two jabronis give Luis an ultimatum: either kill Tony for them, or the Ancelottis will kill Tony and murder all of Luis's friends and family. And back at Mason at 9, Luis walks in on Rocco and Vince holding Tony at gunpoint, and they make Luis take the gun and kill Tony himself. But of course, my guy Luis ain't a complete soulless snake, and instead stands up for his friend and mentor and caps Vince in the melon. Damn, I kinda wish he blasted Rocco instead, but whatever. But we then gotta fight off a damn invading army of Ray Bulgarin's men, just to stay alive. And we then meet Tony at his apartment, who was packing his bags and getting ready to flee the city for his life. But Luis says fuck that, he can't just leave everything behind, and we gotta stand on our business and take down Ray Bulgarin for good.
Fuck off, Luis! No, you fuck off, Tony. I didn't kill you. I wanted to. Why? Because you've become a useless junkie fuck, that's why. But I didn't. And now, it's you and me against the world, okay? And if your brains ain't working right, then I'll make the decision for us, okay? It's Bulgarin or us. Or you can shoot us both and make his life easy for him.
You're kind of clever, aren't you? I only hired you because I thought you were dumb.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And Tony finally puts down his figurative and literal bottle, and they move out to take down Bulgarin for good. And we first take down Ray's right-hand man Timur at the Liberty City Fun Fair Boardwalk, which is probably the hardest gunfight in all of GTA 4. There's several waves of these goons to kill, and they all hide like roaches in each little nook and cranny they can, and it's really hard to spot and gun down all the enemies without taking a few hits yourself, as oftentimes, I had to get shot to actually expose where the enemy was hiding. It's like the base game, they love to just camp out and cover until you expose yourself. But once we gun all these bastards down, we chase Bulgarin's men to the airport, and Yusuf showing up in his golden buzzer to obliterate Bulgarin's goons in the cars they're in from above. Yo, what a classy guy. Thanks, Yusuf. He's such a bro. And we break onto the runway, again, and chase after Ray's private jet, and hop on as it takes off, and then clear the plane like it's COD 4 Special Operations, until Bulgarin steps out, and he knows that it's the end of the line for him, as he pulls the pin out of a grenade, and tells Luis that they'll all explode, and crash, and burn, and die if he kills him. But Luis don't care, and he caps Bulgarin, and the grenade goes off and splits the damn plane in half while in midair, but all the shrapnel from the explosion completely misses Luis, who then jumps out and parachutes to safety, where we then meet Tony to say it's finally over, who is quite proud of Luis.
You did it. You saved my life. You saved the business. You fucking did it.
Hey, man, I did what I could, bro.
I'm proud of you, man. Thank you. But I don't want you to get a big head.
The son he never had had saved his ass big time. Many times, actually. And it's a nice little moment between the two.
Fuck you all! I don't care what people say. Tony Prince and Luis Lopez could not be stopped.
And then Yusuf appears to spread some love in his own special way.
Huh? Oh, jeez, who's this?
What's up, my niggas?
Oh, did he just say that?
Yeah, hey, man.
And they all walk off together. Yusuf even talking about potentially franchising Tony's clubs. So it looks like things are on the up and up for old Gay Tony and Luis. And also, Luis runs into a homeless veteran, who then, in an ironic twist of fate, spots the diamonds just discarded in a trash bag pile. And I'm not quite sure how they got from a gravel truck to a garbage pile in Middle Park, but whatever. And on the radio, we can hear that he plans to take his wealth down to Vice City. So maybe Jerry Kapowitz here will make an appearance in GTA 6. But with that, the Ballad of Gay Tony and the saga of Grand Theft Auto 4 comes to a close. And this story, although much smaller in scale than Lost and Damned, is a really great time. Luis is a really great protagonist, and he calls himself a murderous psychopath.
She's not a murdering, greedy psychopath like me. She's so hard.
But in reality, he's far from that. He's a dedicated, loyal, and hardworking guy who always tries to do what's best for his friends and family. And he clearly cares for Tony despite all the shit they give each other. And like Nico, he's a pretty funny and clever guy, but is also a ruthless and efficient killer when he needs to be. and I ended up liking him way more than I expected. And his character is helped greatly by another excellent voice acting performance from Mario de Leon, and his relationship and banter with Tony is also great. And you come to really like this weird dynamic duo, and really root for them to make it through this insane criminal clusterfuck in one piece. And it's not a very serious DLC at all outside of a few select moments, but the dialogue is just so damn funny and clever. I didn't even care that the story goes completely apeshit, and more or less completely forgets about the gritty and darker themes of the base game and just says, fuck it. Let's have Luis blow up a yacht with a military helicopter, become the most prolific terrorist of the year to pay off club debts to the mob, and murking 24 cops and blowing up 10 police helicopters, just so Luis's billionaire Middle Eastern friend can steal a subway car off the tracks with his cargo helicopter. It's crazy, unbelievable, nonsensical, and just really damn fun. And the Ballad of Gay Tony's missions are GTA 4 at its most fun and memorable. And missions like the ones I just mentioned, plus stealing and using the Noose APC, chasing Yusuf snitches up the Not Empire State Building, and skydiving into a building to then just shoot it all up. And even the golf torture mission were all just super fun and memorable quests to me. And this expansion also adds mission reports and goals to the end of each mission, which will score your mission performance based on certain criteria, like the time to complete, damage taken, and any other unique goals to hit. And every mission can now be replayed at any time, heavily encouraging players to replay these fun missions over and over to 100% complete them. And the devs just knew that these missions were a lot of fun. And my only real complaint comes from how often helicopters are used in this DLC. Because no matter how cool or exciting the mission is, getting in a chopper always made my dirt star clench up from how unwieldy this mission is about to be, thanks to the trash-ass PC flying controls. But besides that, and that's just a nitpick at best, the Ballad of Gay Tony is a blast from pretty much start to finish. And a huge part of what makes these missions so fun, besides the spectacle and insane amount of death you dish out, are the tools that Luis has at his disposal. The Ballad of Gay Tony adds the strongest pistol yet in the form of the 44 pistol, an advanced sniper rifle to kill harder, better, faster, and stronger from a distance, sticky bombs to remotely detonate shit, a brand new parachute that we can use to fuck around in helicopters and jump off tall buildings without fear. Although you have to make sure that you buy one or pick one up and make sure it's in your inventory, and the parachute is discarded after being used, which, unfortunately, is a tad annoying, as you have to buy or reacquire one from your safe house to use a parachute again. And I learned this lesson the hard way. And we also get a 200 round LMG to spray some poor NPCs down with. And this thing was just so damn sick to completely laser dudes out of existence with. And we also get a silenced P90 as a new SMG that has 50 rounds and fantastic accuracy. And we also get a gold SMG that we get from Yusuf late in the story, which I believe has the highest fire rate out of any weapon in the entire game. This thing spits out bullets at light speed. But it also means that you gotta be constantly reloading it, as you drain the mag just so goddamn fast. But it was still very fun to use. And my favorite new weapon was the automatic AA-12 shotgun with explosive bullets, which in practice felt like a compact and rapid-fire RPG. And shooting cars until they detonate, and blowing enemies off their feet with explosive bullets was some sincerely sublime shit. And the weapons here are all really fun to play around with and cause endless death and suffering with. And there's also plenty of side stuff to do here as well. We can play some golf, dance in a mini game I barely understood, press WASD to the music, huh? Well, there's no UI besides this thumping stereo. Instructions unclear. Got dick stuck in the disco ball. But winning the dancing game unlocks the sex side content in the game, where as a reward for your sick moves, you can bang the woman that you were dancing with, where she'll then give you her number. You can then interact with the booty call icon for even more banging. And these are some top tier gooner mechanics. And we can also clock in at the Masonette 9 office and do some nightclub management, where we can watch the club and look out for any trouble, then usually get even more sex from the freaky looking lady who also works at Masonette, and then you'll usually have to help out a celebrity with a problem at one of your clubs, which usually involved Luis turning into a chauffeur for a bit. And all this side content is all just fine. And also, Gang Wars makes a return, but now it's called the Drug Wars, and it's focused on helping Enrique and Armando do some insanely violent drug deals for some more infinite side questing. But with all these factors in mind, when we compare the Lost and Damned and the Ballad of Gay Tony, simply put, Gay Tony just completely overshadows the Lost and Damned in almost every aspect. The story missions are more fun, bombastic, and varied. And the best part, you can replay them whenever you want. And they come with new mission objectives to try and reach 100% score on, easily doubling the replay value of this expansion. And the dialogue here is way funnier, more enjoyable, and just completely out of pocket. And the characters here are just simply way more likable and memorable. I mean, I can still hear Air Money softly playing in the background whenever I think of Yusuf. And the story here isn't trying to jam the complicated downfall of a gang from within into way too short of a runtime. And it mostly just focuses on expanding and resolving the main story's diamond deal, and the Ray Bulgarian subplots that were left unresolved by the time Nico drilled Pegorino in the face on Happiness Island, and focuses on the dynamic between Luis and Tony, and their scuffed as shit, yet surprisingly wholesome and mutually respectful father and son relationship. And sure, they bicker and argue constantly, and go behind each other's backs occasionally to do some shady deals, but when shit gets rough, they always find a way to band together and make it through the day one way or another. Usually with Luis dropping a few dozen bodies in the process. And this smaller scale story makes the narrative feel nowhere near as rushed and scattered as it does in The Lost and Damned. And also, all the new weapons here are just simply way more fun to go completely apeshit with. I mean, the Street Sweeper and Auto Pistol were some sweet weapons, but they don't hold a candle to the explosive AA-12, LMG, P90, sticky bombs, and of course some sweet new vehicles like the Noose APC that we can summon to our location after we complete the main story whenever we want, which can cause way more death and destruction than anything in The Lost and Damned. So any potential shootouts with cops or drug war enemy gangs will be way more exciting in Gay Tony than in The Lost and Damned. And since Gay Tony also has those infinitely repeating missions like the Drug Wars 2, on top of all the story missions being replayable at any time, all combined with an arsenal of new weapons that are way more fun to use, it makes the Ballad of Gay Tony a no-brainer to play over The Lost and Damned any day of the week. And the only reason I could think to play The Lost and the Damned over the Ballad is if you really dig the gritty and dark atmosphere and the heavy leather biker aesthetics of it all. Or if you just want to play through the story if you're a GTA fan and you haven't yet already for completionist sake. Otherwise, there's more fun and violence to be had in the Ballad of Gay Tony, which is a really fantastic DLC package all on its own, and it feels like GTA 4 at its absolute peak, while The Lost and the Damned feels like a still fairly enjoyable, but mostly forgettable sideshow in this huge GTA universe. But that's all I got for you today. And if you're still watching this, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again very soon. Peace. I love you all. Goodbye.